Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
There used to be laws about covering election night or day. In the past, if you were on television or radio, you were not allowed to even mention the names of candidates when the polls were open. There were laws against it because they didn't want
even
people
say
to be
their
influenced.
names, huh?
No, you couldn't even talk about them. You could say that there was an election on, but if you were doing a new broadcast, like on the news or anything, you couldn't mention their names.
Interesting.
It was because they didn't want people influenced, right? And a lot of those regulations, those laws were put into place for national elections because in Canada, of course, we have multiple time zones. And so they would have like blackout periods so that, they just don't want people influenced by media when they're going to the polls. You couldn't run advertising on election day, things like that. But with social media, people are out there just posting all kinds of stuff today, right? Around that election and all other elections. So all of that, those old rules have kind of gone out the window.
They don't really apply. We had similar, not that we couldn't talk about the candidates or report on them on election day, but our rules have changed through the years as, our media was caught a few times in the past calling elections too early. Because polls were still open out on the West Coast.
Right.
And, they were calling the election before the polls were even closed, which of course would influence voters on the West Coast not to go vote because what's the point? Right. The guy already won. Right. And that goes all the way back to 1980 when Ronald Reagan won in a landslide.
Same issue here in Canada.
But, we weren't restricted from talking about the candidates. I guess that's where your law is a little different from ours, but we can't make any projections until after the polls have closed across the country now.
Yeah.
Which is good.
When I was running helping to run a college radio station, I was the public affairs director back in those days. And so I organized all the election coverage one year. And so I had to select people to, for all the different positions for election night coverage. The guy who was anchoring the broadcast, he started to blurt out names. We went on the air before the polls closed, and I had to reach over and actually put my hand over his mouth.
No way.
I did. Yeah. I was afraid that the college radio station was going to be reprimanded. Anyway, we didn't get him.
Well, at least you didn't pull the plug and just take him off the air.
We were just a bunch of kids, just doing our best.
Yeah, that's it. Those are the good old days. I'll tell you a funny screw up story from my youth. My first year, I was as a journalist, I was anchoring the afternoon news on a radio station here in Oklahoma. And this is how old I am, folks. This was back during the Iran-Contra scandal. Yeah, I'm that old. I remember it well, reported on it every day. And you remember Oliver North, right, who played a key role in that scandal. Some local group sent me a press release saying that Oliver North was coming to Oklahoma City and he was going to give a speech, which would have been very newsworthy at the time. The whole world was watching Oliver North and his congressional testimony and this and that. So I made the mistake of going on the air and announcing that Oliver North is coming to town to give a speech before I had checked it out to make sure it was legit. Oops. Live and learn. Because as it turned out, that was fake news. And our station was embarrassed. I embarrassed us by going with that story before I'd checked it out. So it taught me a valuable lesson. Don't say anything until you're damn sure that a press release is legit. Just because it's a press release doesn't mean it's true. And no, Oliver North was not coming to Oklahoma City to give a speech. It's all bullshit. So, sometimes we do some fake news without realizing it, right? Or it's an honest mistake.
Yes.
Not every journalist is out to deceive you. Sometimes we just goof, and I goofed that time.
What is this you have on the screen? Do you need to bring something up on the screen? Is that another story? or
Yeah.
What is
I
that?
wanted to show you. That's my latest Twitter poll.
Oh,
And it's
okay.
still open if you guys want to vote. Rick and I, we've been talking about doing a Twitter space together, kind of a Twitter space version of Maverick News. I don't know if you guys like Twitter spaces, but I do them a lot. I host Twitter spaces pretty often, and they've been pretty popular. A lot of people listen to Twitter spaces. So we just, you just kind of pick a topic and go. And I like it because it's sort of like the call-in portion of the show here, where we take phone calls and hear what's on people's minds. But on Twitter spaces, there's no charge to use the phone. We don't have to pay to use the phone. You don't have to pay. All you have to do is get on Twitter. The only thing is, folks, if you'd like to participate in these Twitter spaces, and this causes some confusion sometimes, to be able to speak, you have to use the Twitter app on your phone. It doesn't work on a laptop or a PC. You can listen, but you can't speak. So if you'd like to be involved in the conversation and you'd like to speak at the space, be sure to use your phone and not your PC, because that's something Twitter just needs to fix. They haven't fixed it yet, that you can't speak on Twitter spaces on your PC. So I asked a question. I said, what topics should we cover on our next Twitter space? And I threw a few ideas out there. Twitter only gives you 4 options on these polls. So I asked, do you want to talk about the Russia coup attempt, or RFK Jr., or Julian Assange, or other? If people had other ideas, they could drop a comment. And wow, look at that. Julian Assange wins by a mile. 43.5% want us to talk about the Assange case, which is coming to a head right now. And I think that's why so many people want us to talk about it. His extradition is imminent any moment now. He has pretty much exhausted every opportunity for appeal. As we expected, the British courts and the High Court don't want to hear his appeal, and he's been denied time and time again. So it looks inevitable that any minute now they're going to send him over here to the United States. And we know that that is probably a death sentence for Julian. I honestly don't think he will survive. I think he will be Epsteined. If I can just be honest, I think they're going to Epstein him before he ever sees the inside of a courtroom. Even if he does get to trial, it probably won't be a fair trial, because in the Eastern District of Virginia, no national security case has ever been won by the accused. The government always wins. It's like playing craps in a casino. The House always wins. And I just don't see that Julian will get a fair trial. And who knows, he might even end his own life rather than go through that, or face prison in the United States where he will be tortured and treated less than human. So Julian's birthday is coming up, July 3rd. That might be a good time to schedule a space, or shortly before that, because wouldn't it be just like the U.S. government to extradite the guy on his birthday? I honestly expect them to do that. And of course, that's going to separate him from his wife, Stella, and their children, who come to visit him all the time at Belmarsh Prison. But they live in the UK. I don't know if they're going to relocate to the US. I would fear for their safety in the United States. I honestly don't know if his wife and kids would be safe living here.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.